A few months ago I made a video explaining how equivalence technology worked in LMP1, and mainly why this wasn't balanced performance, as it seems to be a continuing confusing thing, mixing the two up and treating them the same. But anyway, since then, the ACO have gone and proven me wrong, by pushing equivalence technology ever closer to just being BOP with a different name. Yeah, that's really cool of them. I go through all this effort to explain why it isn't BOP, and then they just do their best to say, hey look, it's effectively just BOP, isn't it? Right? It's still not exactly BOP, but they're doing their best. So this is more of an update of how things actually are now in LP1, since we're in the third race of the season and several things have happened which have sort of outdated my last video, though it is still somewhat useful as a background to the whole thing. So let's see where we stand with regards to EOT and how LMP1 is looking in general. 3 races into the super season. Hey. It's not really exciting, is it? Anyway, let's briefly start with what happened at Le Mans. For the record, I did not see most of Le Mans. I only saw a few hours, was asleep through the rest, and I was travelling through the end, though from what I saw, not much happened. But anyway, so what happened at Le Mans? The main thing at Le Mans was, for some reason, they set a maximum number of laps you could have in each stint. I think off the top of my head it was something like maybe 10 or 11 laps for each LMP1 car. You know, that was the maximum you could go on a stint. I'm not sure the exact number, you can look it up. But the point was that they limited the maximum stint length for LMP1 and GT Pro for some fucking reason, which is weird. Very weird. And yeah, this for some reason gave the Toyotas the option to have longer stints. It was set up so that the privateer cars had to stop earlier than Toyota, and even Toyota were limited to what the car could technically do. So this was the exact opposite of how the UT had been set since more or less the beginning of time. Why they decided to completely reverse their philosophy and give the fastest car ever to lap around Le Sartre a strategic advantage over, well, essentially a bunch of souped up P2s doing their first Le Mans, I will never know. Enforcing a maximum number of laps between stint stops, it has to be one of the stupidest decisions I've ever seen from a rule maker. Yeah, at least the chase in NASCAR has a tiny bit of merit to it. I don't see any merit to this at all. This is just, what? It is an absolute insult to endurance racing, to Le Mans, the competitors and the fans. I'm surprised they didn't put speed limits on the Mustang straight while they were at it. You know, that'd be up there with stupid decisions. You know, and I don't think it was coincidence that the race we had was one of the most boring Le Mans we've had in several years. You know, because they took away the only thing that could have made the P1 fight interesting, which would be strategy. You know, they killed that off immediately, and you know, even the other classes were pretty fucking dull. You know, which, well, what do you expect when you kill off the strategy in a 24-hour race? The whole point of a 24-hour race is the strategy. And, well, they just went, yeah, let's just remove that part of it. You don't need that, do you? Yeah, so, yeah, that was not really good. Thankfully, that whole thing was quietly killed off and forgotten about, and hopefully it never comes back as we head to Silverstone. So, we went to Silverstone last Sunday. It's the Tuesday after when I'm recording this. And let's see where things currently stand. The EOT numbers were tweaked after Le Mans and the first 2 races, which show that the privateers were completely and utterly outclassed by Toyota. For some reason, previously the ACO had been aiming to give Toyota half a second or ish a lap advantage over their privateers. Like, that was their aim with the EOT, which, you know, it's not really... didn't really happen, since the Toyotas lapped nearly 3 seconds faster than the Rebellions and the BR1s. So the ACO adjusted things, aiming for all LMP1 cars to set the same lap time. This is beginning to sound a bit more like BOP, isn't it? For the first time, different energy allowances were set for naturally aspirated and turbo non-hybrid cars. That's very BOP-like. The UT now not just aiming to balance hybrids and non-hybrids, but even, you know, different types of non-hybrid cars. We are essentially one step away from EOT simply becoming BOP. You know, they're going to start setting different energy allowances for the chassis, for all we know, and the engines, specific engines, if we keep going at this rate. But anyway, before we get into any more on that, let's look at the numbers then of where we stand now, since most people don't look at the numbers. They just see things being changed, have a shout, and don't actually do the simple maths to work to see where exactly are we? Where do we stand? So, quite conveniently, before Silverstone, this table is issued, which is the update to the EUT values for some Silverstone onwards and sort of until they tweak them again, which, given the gaps between the races and the super season, they'll probably tweak them between every race because they've nothing else to do. So starting with the hybrid cars in the right column. At Silverstone they can use 5.37 megajoules of hybrid energy per lap, which is a function of the length of the lap of Silverstone compared to the lap of Le Mans, and they do some maths and they came up with this number. And they're also allowed to use 60.1 megajoules of petrol. Their hybrid system is also limited to 300 kilowatts, or about 400 horsepower. I'm not sure if this is a peak value or total per lap. I'm guessing it's peak value because as total per lap doesn't really make sense for that. But I don't fully know, so look that up yourself or something. But it's interesting, just the fact that there is an actual set limit on that, whereas none of the internal combustion engines in any of the cars are power limited in any way. Anyway, the important value is the total energy available to Toyota over one lap, which is 65.47 megajoules. Compare this to the 9 hybrids, which have 98.8 megajoules for a turbo car, or 103.9 megajoules for naturally aspirated. The fuel flow is also higher on to the 9 hybrids, at 315 kilograms per hour compared with the Toyota's 80 kilograms per hour. Interestingly, this is the same for the naturally aspirated and turbo cars. Also very importantly, the non-hybrids have more fuel per stint, 55.5 and 52.8 kilograms for naturally aspirated and turbo respectively, compared to the 35.1 kilos for hybrid cars. So let's do some more maths then. According to Wikipedia, the energy density of petrol is 46.4 megajoules per kilogram. So you get a calculator, do some maths. The naturally aspirated non-hybrids therefore have 2,575.2 megajoules per stint. The turbos have 2,449.92 megajoules per stint, and the hybrids have 1,628.64 megajoules petrol per stint. But the hybrids also have the 5.37 megajoules per lap, and they did 23 lap stints at Silverstone, so over that entire stint they were allowed to use 1,752.15 megajoules per stint. As you can see, that is a significant difference over the approximately 40-ish minute stints that they had, 40-ish, 50 minute stints. That's quite a difference. Side note here, for the nerds who may have already worked it out, but with a limit of 60.1 megajoules of petrol and 5.37 megajoules of hybrid energy per lap, to use their entire stint allowance, Toyota would have needed to do 27 lap stints during the Silverstone 6 hours, which they didn't. There are of course many reasons why they didn't, such as tyre wear, which was significant at Silverstone, yellow flags, shorter fueling times, and, you do shorter stints, less fuel on the car, less fuel to fill, and even with this they still won by 4 laps. Even though they did later get disqualified, but they crossed the line 4 laps ahead of the nearest competition, so they didn't really need to push the absolute limit of what they could do. But that's a quick note, not really relevant, just of interest I noticed. Anyway, in the end, the fuel allowance for Sims seemed to be on it, as all the finishing LMP1 cars made the same number of stops and had similar stint lengths. They all came with all the cars, hybrid, non-hybrids, did pit reasonably close together. I think some of the non-hybrids though were trying to save fuel. Was mentioned at some points that they were getting slightly longer stints, maybe in some sort of attempt to make a strategic advantage, but in the end it didn't make much difference. They all did the same number of stops anyway, and Toyota still had the least time in the pits. Which is interesting because you can also see in the table that non-hybrids have larger fuel fill restrictors, which makes perfect sense since they have to add more fuel in the pit stop. They're always trying to aim so that they have similar pit stop times. It takes the same amount of time to fill a tank. And when we then look at the total time spent in the pits, the non-hybrids still spent more time in the pits than the two Toyotas. but if you look at the individual pit stops, it seemed for a normal stop they were within a few seconds of each other. I know a few seconds is important in racing, but in this sort of racing, a few seconds can easily be just how good your pit crew is. Yeah, and then the differences to total time were mainly from sort of anomaly stops where either there was a repair, there was an error, maybe they changed bodywork. It was quite common during the race for all the LMP1 teams to change noses, rear ends, obviously to fix damage. It's a 6-hour race. It's endurance racing. So I think the fuel flow is pretty on it and pretty well matched. But obviously the ACO, probably best to double check this and make sure that all the sort of the pit stop difference it can be explained by things other than the fuel flow restrictor and the fueling rig. So anyway, there's the numbers, and if you just look at those pure numbers, you would think, yeah, non-hybrids have a chance, don't they, to compete against the hybrids. They've more energy, more fuel, lighter cars. Surely they could give some sort of competition to the Toyotas. Unfortunately not, and as you know if you're watching this, they didn't. The best Rebellion finished 4 laps behind the Toyotas, its fastest race lap 1.6 seconds behind the best Toyota. This was larger in qualifying. The S&Ps were close to Rebellion, but if not faster at times, but incident and reliability for the S&Ps would take them out of the race. Taking yourself out in the first corner doesn't help, and having your other car fail after 41 minutes. That's just racing. So that's where we stand with the numbers then. Going over again, non-hybrids have significantly more energy per lap, more fuel per stint, quite lighter. Surely they have a chance, but as it continues, they simply don't. So now, here's some time for some opinions. Not exactly facts, I can be called an idiot for what I'm saying from here. As expected, after the race, people started rambling and complaining about how uncompetitive LMP1 is. The UT is shit, make the privateers faster, etc, etc. You've all heard it, you've all seen it, and we've dealt with it for the last few months. Having spent 6 hours on Sunday watching the 2 Toyotas fuck off into the sunset, I still mostly disagree with all this. I guess I'm some sort of weird purist when it comes to LMP1. You just keep looking at the UT with the stint and bollocks gone rid of, mind you. The non-hybrids still have significant rule book advantage. The issue is how that is transpired into reality and the practical situation we are in. Apart from the bike hulls, which is based on an ancient chassis, the privateer cars are all in their first season, and 2 of them, the faster 2 mind you, are essentially uprated P2 cars. I'll talk a bit more about that later, but frankly, you are deluded if you think that they can lap faster than a factory-backed 1000 horsepower hybrid 4-wheel drive car, continuously developed by a factory team over 3 seasons, derived from championship-winning cars, and driven by some of the best prototype drivers in the world, and last year set the fastest ever lap around any configuration of circular start. Despite the Mulsanne chicanes that had a faster average speed than the pre-chicanes Group C era. This is a seriously fast car they're up against. And in one of the cars they've the likes of Buemi, Nakajima, Alonso in one. Rebellion have good drivers, mind you, but they can't do much when they're driving an LP 1.5. And even if we get to a world where the non-hybrid car is able to boost similar lap times to the Toyotas will always have better race pace due to its ludicrous acceleration, allowing them to get through traffic like it's standing still. And you still have to see it to believe the acceleration of a hybrid LMP1 car. It's ludicrous. It's like everything else is standing still, whereas the non-hybrids still have a harder time getting past, especially the LMP2 cars. They can get past them, mind you, but not as efficiently as the Toyotas can. So what can be done about all this? Because, let's face it, having only 2 cars able to win is a bit shit. I think the aim of having all the LMP1 cars set the same lap time is unrealistic within a fully prototype formula. If you want that, make it a spec formula or BOP class, which come 2020 seems to be exactly what they will do, but that's a rabble for another day. No, the realistic way for the privateers to beat Toyota is on strategy. If they make fewer stops, they might have a chance. I'm not sure if that is even possible, since the UT is still giving them more fuel percent, and the lap time penalty for carrying all that extra fuel might end up cancelling out the benefit of less time in the pits. It's a tough situation. They're properly screwed. Frankly, unless one of the privateers makes some sort of breakthrough in the month for Fuji, not much is going to change. And not much is probably going to change for the season. They'll get faster, they'll get more reliable, but I don't see them being able to beat Toyota on pure pace. Even given all the extra fuel allowances they are, in an attempt to perhaps give them a strategic advantage. There was talk last race at Silverstone that the Gibson LMP1 cars, simply could not use the extra fuel allowance. They were just simply limited by their engine. It can't get more efficient, and I can't use all the fuels being thrown at it in the rules. Same way Toyota couldn't use all their fuel stint allowance. There's only so far you can give them in the rules before you just end up in a situation where everyone is just at the best they are, and there's nothing more they can do. So really, for the rest of the season, the best we can hope for is to have a good race between the privateers, which I think will happen. At Silverstone, there was a decent race between the S&Ps and the Rebellions. It was competitive. It was somewhat entertaining. So that's the best we have to look for. Just ignore the fact that Toyota are going to get 1-2 every race, bar its qualifications. You just see them as some sort of sideshow. You're just there purely for the entertainment of seeing a ridiculously fast sports car on a track, because they are still spectacular to look at. And they're still going for it. The fear going into the season would be that they would hold back and not bother, not really try. Drive at 90%. No, they're still driving at 100%. They are still spectacular on track, and long may they do so, because if the ACO do in 2020 what they say they're going to do in 2020, we'll be damn glad to have our LP1 hybrids back. I don't see GTP having the same speed as the current LP1 hybrids, and you're going to miss that spectacular speed. You're going to miss the proper prototypes if they kill it. There's still a chance they won't. Still, just based off all the previous announcements that the ACL have made over the years of all the various classes that never happened. So hopefully GTP goes that way as well, and we continue with our proper prototypes at Le Mans. Because it would be damn shame if we get to the 100th anniversary of Le Mans and it's like, 10 years ago we had much faster cars. Yeah, that'd be disappointing. But in the end, people watched racing for different reasons. So no matter what happens, someone's going to be pissed off. I bet a lot of people are going to like GTP. If it produces the racing the pounds it's going to produce, I'll probably like it. But it's not going to be LP1H. People are always going to be pissed off. I watch LP1 to see the fastest and most advanced sports cars in the world go around track, smash lap records, make a mockery of the ACL's attempts to slow them down. I watch GTE for the wheel-to-wheel battles. That's where I go for that sort of entertainment. Of course, if a wheel-to-wheel race was to break out in LMP1, I'm not going to complain at all. That's probably not going to happen for quite a while. Anyway, so that's where we stand in LMP1. TLDR, privateers are screwed, but they may be able to race themselves. And I really have no solution for it. At least, I'm going to be honest and say I don't have a solution for it, because hell, you're going to see a lot of other people who say, yeah, this is what they should do. They should do this. They should do that. But let's be realistic here. There isn't really much that can be done unless you ban Toyota from the series. That's the only thing that's going to make a difference. Because as long as Toyota show up to the racetrack, they're going to win. They're just going to win. That's what's going to happen. They finish the race, they're going to win. Simple as that. But anyway. The 6 Hours Silverstone was the first full WC race I've actually gotten to watch this season, having real-life racing commitments get in the way of the other ones. So, I got to watch it trackside, and here's some observations I made of the LMP1 field. So, this is a bit less factual, there's less basis for anything I'm about to say, but this is what I saw, and take it at that sort of face value. First off, as I mentioned, the Toyotas are still bloody trying. They are as fast as ever. They beat the LP1 lap record at Silverstone in qualifying, and still racing as hard and as aggressively as ever, as we would see when they're still aggressive on the curbs. Personally, I spotted them going quite wide at cops. Many of the prototypes and GT cars did this, So interestingly, only Toyota managed to break their skid plate doing it, if this is where it happened. They caught a bit of maggots, but not as much as the GT cars. Prototypes were pretty well behaved through maggots and beds, to be fair. They seem to be generally well behaved through stow and club as well. So yeah, while on the most end well behaved, the Toyotas were still using the track, they were still using the curbs. So they can blame the curbs all they want, they still drove on it. And when you win by 4 laps, you don't need to drive on them. So that's all their fault. To get disqualified from that. Yeah. And also on the Toyotas, they are visibly the quickest cars on track. If you've ever watched a race at all, either TV or trackside, you can't actually, it's extremely difficult to visually tell the difference in pace between cars of the same class, not the same reasonable pace. I was often thrown them out. You generally really can't see even a second per lap difference between cars on track. Because you're only looking at such a small piece of the overall track. You can only see a couple of corners at best. You might be able to spot differences in the lines and things like that, but you can't really tell. Just, oh yeah, he's going faster than him. Just off like that, and it's like, yeah, he was half a second quicker through that section. You can't see that from the trackside, but you could with the Toyotas. Their acceleration is just, it continues to be leagues ahead of anything else on track. They're just so fast. Acceleration, and you can visually see, oh shit, that car is fast. Fortunately, the privateer LMP1 cars still looked good in the corners. Looked competitive, looked like LMP1 cars in the corners. Didn't have the acceleration, as they're not expected to, but otherwise they looked fast. They didn't. Yeah, they did look visually a little faster than the P2 cars, which, in the end is all they really are in that bit. But fortunately, they were actually faster than LMP2 cars, which is not what we've seen in other years with the privateers, where they're often beaten in the race by LMP2 cars. Bike hauls aside, they were all clearly faster than LMP2 cars, and generally did not seem to have too much issues lapping LMP2 cars either, which is good to see. The BR1 and R13 looked to be competent cars. At times they did look a bit sketchy over the bumps. Which in the first early practice sessions, which is to be expected, they are new cars. In GTE, the Aston and BMW at times looked a bit sketchy as well. Aston particularly in the first session, maybe at times in the second session, they didn't seem to have the balance at all. But in all these cases, they got on top of it. They're professional teams. They worked through it. They sorted them out. But yeah, it was clear that they're new cars learning how to properly set up at Silverstone, and they got it done. Then going on to the cars themselves, while the BR1 has several visual differences in its high downforce kit, both it and the R13 are very clearly derived from their P2 cousins. The R13 is very clearly an Orca 07 with a slightly bigger engine. The rear of the BR1 is borrowed from the Lara P2, but it's nearly exactly the same. If you take a picture actually of the two cars from behind, you cannot tell the difference between the two. The main difference on the BR1 has been the front area of the car, sort of the side pods and the nose, which is to be expected, as they refine it. Quite clearly, the Lara P2 has potential in it, but it can't really realise the potential due to P2 regulations restricting development. So clearly it's sort of a development of P2, and perhaps even the BR1 will be a view of what we can expect when the Lara introduce their second version of their P2 car in this homologation cycle. Most of the difference between the P1 and the P2 versions of these cars is underneath the bodywork. Obviously the different engines, very different engine in the case of the BR1 being a V6 turbo compared to a naturally aspirated V8. Which will obviously require a very different cooling solution. Brakes, I'm guessing, are uprated to deal with the higher speeds, top speeds. The top speeds are similar, so maybe they're not as different as you might think, but perhaps they are. Maybe utilising some of the freedom. Potentially the cars are lighter as well. They're not cost cap like they are in LMP2, so they're a bit more exotic in the solutions. Probably different suspension systems as well, slightly tweaked. Though no, I don't expect them to be a whole lot different from their P2, but just sort of underneath being a lot of different tweaks and things, updates that they can't make for homologation reasons to the P2 cars. So there's nothing to stop them doing it in P1. So they just go and do it. I found the sound of the Gisp LMP1 engine interesting compared to its LMP2 engine, which it is very directly derived from. A high RPM, they sound exactly the same as you'd expect, but the difference is when the P1 is exiting slow corners. It's very clearly different. It sounds as if the engine is sort of lugging, like a much lower rumbly sound. It's as if it's on a traction control, which is my guess, which would be my guess what it is. But I don't know. I believe the LMP2 cars can have traction control. The LMP1 cars definitely can. So maybe it's just different in the setting there. Maybe it's the consequence of how they increase the capacity. Perhaps if it's a longer stroke or something like that. Yeah, but it's very interesting. A lot more interesting sound than the LMP2 cars, which is just sort of constant scream. The LMP1 cars, you get that difference between sort of the low RPM, high load, then it transitions up through the gears to its familiar scream. Downshifts are still as violent as the P2 car. That's still good. The AR engine, the V6, is surprisingly loud for a V6 turbo, which is good. We like our prototypes to sound like race cars. A bit worrying though that one of the AR powered cars blew up after 41 minutes. So that's a bit worrying for Ginetta, who have just switched to the AR engine, and you fear that they may have made a step sideways rather than forward, which is not what that team needs after more or less disaster of a season they are currently having. But overall, I liked what I saw in the privateers. Yes, they are upgraded LMP2 cars, but they seem to be competent quality cars. Bike aside, that's all they should show. And I didn't see the Ginetta, so I can't really make much judgment of it. But competent cars, they're what you want to see. And I like it. I do like that. And, if this was given a few years of stable regulations, this privateer field could have grown into something and grown into the future of the class. Maybe it could have gotten to the point where manufacturers might return, to take it off Toyota, and perhaps the privateers could be where they should be. Not winning outright, but close enough and competent enough that they can fight amongst themselves. And if the factory cars ever slip up, they're there to pounce and put the pressure on. But that's not going to happen, because I fear that in the end, the privateers will be burned by the ACO. Again, they really have an awful habit of doing this to the privateers. It's beyond a joke now at this point. Anyway, so yeah, that's why I saw Silverstone, and that's more or less my current thoughts on what life is like in LMP1. Yeah. I'm not sure how long I've rambled for, but thanks for listening. Crap, I was going on for half an hour. This was only supposed to be like 20 minutes or something, so. Anyway, bye. See you at Fuji.